Welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by a man who may not being the next coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing good. Obviously, action-packed Monday night, and I have decided to take my name out of the running for all the head coaching positions. So,
Oh, okay.
they're all gonna have to look elsewhere.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure stated that stuff to talk here. Wild Monday. We're gonna preview the Monday games, then we'll go move on. Previewing the divisional round. People are saying,
Oh boy, think we just lost Jackson.
Did you lose me?
You're in and out. I barely heard you there.
Okay, that's weird. I don't know what's going on. It looks my internet seems to be working fine, so I'm not sure why it's being weird. But we'll how bad is that? Is my audio okay? What's going on?
It is. It's just in and out, and it was pretty. I think you timed out there for a few seconds, but I think we're back. Let's power through it. What were you saying? Wild Monday night. Oh.
Yeah, crazy Monday night. I was just kind of talking about. We'll start with the. Oh, am I still good?
You just got out again.
Okay, this isn't good.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I'm plugged. My internet's plugged in and everything. That's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, let's just try it again. Let's keep going. So okay. Monday night. Let's get to that one. Obviously, you were at the game at Raymond James Stadium. I think they still call it Raymond James. Anyway, but you were at the game. That was, fantastic from your perspective, probably pretty abysmal from the other team's perspective. It looked miserable for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think they did anything well. They didn't run the ball well, obviously, which was surprising given what this Eagles team has been. Devontae Smith played well. I guess that's their one bright spot, but the tackling was highlighted, how poor the tackling was, how bad the coverage was, how bad their defense just from top to bottom was. And I mean, so let's just start there. Is Nick Sirianni fired after this kind of game?
Overlap 618 in the chat. I hope you two are real fine. I said I bet it all on the Rams money line, and it's really bad. This is Overlap. Where is the button to request you donate to me? I don't think that button exists. Overlap.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't. Wish you the best of luck. Sorry we got the Rams pick wrong for you.
Yeah, we got a handful of picks wrong. The game was electric. The game was a lot of fun. Place was going crazy. Just a really fun time. My first playoff victory I've been to as a fan. So, the safety fought as I've ever heard a game get.
I lost you there again.
I might try and I'm trying what the plan is here because the internet's not working. I'm not sure. Is it connected to the Wi-Fi or the cord? Here, I'll try to figure it out. You want to kill some time for a minute?
Yeah, I will. I will power through this. Give my thoughts on the Bucs and Saints. So yeah, I mean, just watching this game, and I mean, the Eagles played like a team who had quit, basically, right? Like they had no energy. They had no kind of. I mean, it looked like they had no desire to be there, which was just inexplicable given that it was a playoff game. So yeah, that's about as miserable of a playoff game as I've seen from an individual opponent. And the Eagles just looked dead in the water from the very beginning. From the very beginning, this team didn't look like they were ready to tackle, didn't look like they were ready to engage, didn't look like they were ready to play on the line of scrimmage. And they were dominated basically in every facet of the game that wasn't Devontae Smith. And Devontae Smith gave himself a hell of a performance in this game. I do want to give props to him because he's the only one who seemed like he brought it this entire game. But yeah, I don't know how to explain this Eagles situation. Like, obviously this team was clearly worse than it was last season. And, I think you could talk about the assistant coaches and was that an added influence? Maybe. I don't know how much of an influence the offensive and defensive coordinator have from year to year, but it felt pretty substantial in this game. It felt pretty substantial this season for the Eagles. And then you look at it like, the linebackers were a thing that was highlighted all season. They lost 2 linebackers last year, and these guys struggled all year, and they struggled again in this game. So, yeah, I think top to bottom, the Eagles have a lot of questions they have to ask this offseason, and that was my biggest takeaway. I do want to give props to the Bucs here, too, because they did play well. But I feel like the bigger story of this game, you know, much to Jackson's dismay, is probably Philadelphia and what this ended with, given that this team was 10-1. This team was close to winning the Super Bowl last season. And the way this team finished down the stretch was, I mean, this was a bottom tier team for basically week 12 on. Like literally, like this team would be in the running for like a top 5 pick the way they played the second half of the year. And that's inexplicable.
Well, first off, how's it? It seems to be looking okay now. Is it?
It looks
sound
much
okay?
better.
Okay,
It looks
perfect.
much better. Yeah.
I think so. I'm plugged in, but I think for whatever reason my internet was still just connecting through Wi-Fi instead of through the Ethernet cable. So I think we're okay. I'm hopeful we're okay now. Yeah, okay, glad we got that fixed. But I mean, yeah, it was no. The Eagles is absolutely the story. I mean, they were 10-1. They were the Super Bowl favorites. Jalen Hurts was crazy thing about at a certain point in the season, Jalen Hurts was the MVP favorite simply due to how good this team was. And now they're coming out and looking like this. I mean, Kyle, you talk about in hockey to talk about like battle level, right? Like how hard do you try to get the puck when it's by the boards? Battle level here for the Philadelphia Eagles was non-existent. I mean, all these missed tackles.
Mm-hmm.
There were times when it seemed like guys weren't trying to tackle. It was to me. I think you keep Sirianni just for another year. I think just on principle, like I think you give him one more year. I do think you fire basically every other coordinator that's there. And if it goes poorly again, I think you get rid of him. But like if they fired him, I don't think a lot of people would say like, how could you do it? Just given the performance that they put in this one.
Yeah. I mean, look, this organization fired Doug Peterson after winning a Super Bowl. It fired Andy Reid, which seems inexplicable now, right? So they're definitely not afraid to do it. It would be extreme, though. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with this team this summer. Obviously, they got a lot of questions to answer now. And, yeah, I mean, I basically said at the top of this when you jumped off real quick is that the quit factor seemed incredibly high for this team. And they looked like they already had their bags packed for vacation. So, now that we got that out of the way, because they played really badly. I can't stress enough how badly they played. But let's take it from your perspective. The number 4 seed, your team that, we said the NFC South sucks all year. We don't want to see any of these teams in the playoffs. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go into this game and dominate it from the get-go. Just dominated from the beginning. And, Baker played probably one of the best games of his career, for being honest. And it was like the funniest thing is like the way you said the Buccaneers were going to win this game was probably like Mike Evans' big day. And Mike Evans was maybe the worst player on the Buccaneers in this game.
Yeah.
Like he was probably the worst player, but everybody else played really well. Everybody stepped up. Cade Otton was a menace. David Moore was a menace. Trey Palmer had that big touchdown. I mean, everything else kind of worked except for Mike Evans. And I mean, that has to feel really good as a Tampa Bay fan.
Yeah, Cade Otton did have some drops in there as well. Him and Evans both. I mean, it was like they were like lathered in oil or something. They couldn't catch anything, but they also couldn't get tackled. It was a weird situation going on. But I mean, it was incredible. It was exactly what you hope, what you envision going in, and it worked out. Worked out perfectly. I have no, I mean, again, little notes. You got to catch the ball, obviously, but no, I mean it's great. Baker did try to throw an interception at one point, got away with one there. So, got to cut down on that against Detroit, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it was just making the playoffs was a great season. This is just it's fun. This is why all those people saying, oh, I'd want us to lose. I don't want a draft pick. Well, where are you now?
Yeah. So how far have you talked how far have you talked yourself into this team?
I mean, of course, there's been times like, walking the dog where I'm like, well, if Green Bay could upset San Francisco and then maybe, I don't know, Todd Bowles can scheme up another good scheme against Mahomes, it's possible.
Yeah, I guess it is possible. So, yeah, I mean, it was fun. What was the atmosphere like there? I got to say, watching on TV, like it was still definitely pro Tampa Bay, but it seemed like there was a lot of Eagles fans there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just, a Tampa Bay game when you're playing an East Coast team, like you're going to get a lot of transplants. I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, Eagles fans, some started off loud and very quickly, didn't have a ton to cheer about in this one. There was a point where, so the Eagles fans kind of started leaving and then a lot of Buccaneers fans were kind of giving it to them. There was one who, a couple sections over, somehow riled up the entire crowd and then lifted up his shirt to show his belly. I'm not sure about that move, Kyle.
Yeah, that's always a bold call, right?
Hmm.
Like, I really feel like you just have to embrace being like you have to be two of the extremes. You have to be like Jack Reacher ripped, or you have to be like just abnormally large. Like, you have to be all in on it, basically.
Right.
You can't be
Hmm.
like just like an average fat guy lifting your
Yeah.
shirt up, because then it's just like weird. So, if you're Jack Reacher, you could do whatever you want. And if you're if you're just like, huge, then yeah, go all in for it. Embrace it, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I think I agree. Yeah. Just a fun, very fun game. I had a great time. That's my review.
So obviously this is a much different Jalen Hurts that we had expectations for. But, the last two times this team has played the Eagles in the playoffs, it's looked borderline dominant. And I guess the question here is, what do you think they're having so much success against this team doing?
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit different. I mean, what they did in this game was they obviously blitzed the hell out of Hurts. A lot of people were crediting the defensive line, which sure, but I also think it was just pressure, being able to cover on the back end. Smith also did have a couple of big plays, obviously, but kind of other than that, they just couldn't get much going. I think part of why I tweeted out my official prediction was the Eagles. I the point for getting it wrong, but I did eventually on Twitter switch it once I found out AJ Brown was hurt. I thought that really hurt them, and I think that just they didn't have Lamonte David was covering Dallas Goedert pretty well, and then I mean Smith was able to get open at times, but he wasn't able to get open every play, and when he wasn't, it just nothing was happening.
Right. No, I agree. And I think it was a big problem. So, we'll see what happens with Philadelphia. Big win for Tampa. They're going to Detroit this week. We'll talk about that game in a second. You want to go to the first game?
Yeah, to the Steelers Bills. I couldn't watch the second half live because I was heading to the game and all that. But it was one of those classic Steelers games, right, where it's like they look absolutely terrible, and then all of a sudden you look up and it's 7 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was a realistic path to them finding a way to actually pull this game out. Obviously, it would have taken some big plays, but yeah, I mean, they cut it to 24-17. Then Josh Allen leads that awesome drive, and that capped off with that Khalil Shakir touchdown. That was just incredible effort to get through all that. And I think you could talk about officiating on some of these, like that slide by Josh Allen and then the fake slide run thing. Like, obviously, I think could be questioned, but I thought there was some questionable calls going both ways, so I'm not too concerned about it. But yeah, I think the better team won. I thought Buffalo did play pretty well in this game. They just keep doing the darn thing, man. Like as much as I think this team, I still think this team can win the Super Bowl, but it's like they go up 21-0 in this game, and it's like, okay, they're gonna put their foot on the gas. This is over. Then it's like a blocked field goal. Pittsburgh scores. Then it's the end of the half. Then they immediately start with a punt. Field goal, touchdown. And it's like, are they going to blow this game all of a sudden, leading 21-0? It's like this team just doesn't have the almost kill factor it seems like sometimes they need.
Yeah, probably. At the same time, they still did win a playoff game by 14 points. I mean, I get it. I do understand that, it was probably closer than the final score. But also, I have to say, I don't know, that long run by Josh Allen kind of looked like he just juked the guy out.
I don't know. It's tough because the maybe, I don't know. Like, I every time I watch it, I get a different impression. Like, it looks like the defender is definitely slowing down, and I don't know. It kind of feels like he's preparing for him to go to the ground, but I don't know how to judge it. But also, Josh Allen's a lunatic, and you should never prepare for him to go to the ground because that guy, never slides unless he's trying to draw a flag, which he'll flop for the flag anyways. So.
Again, I know you're not a huge Josh Allen fan in general, so that there's maybe some.
I like Josh Allen, but this guy, you can't tell me that Josh Allen doesn't flop. Like,
of course he flopped. No, 100%. I'm just saying. I mean, the NFL, they've kind of screwed. I mean, they definitely screwed defenders with this. Of like, I mean, you see it where defenders don't know when to pull up, and I mean, you see it with Mahomes all the time. It's like, I mean, when you flag them so close to when you get flagged when you're not even trying to hit the quarterback, egregiously, then like you have to pull up early and then bad things can happen. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just a weird situation that we've run into with these quarterbacks and the way they run and, the way we have to protect them now, which, I think some of the protection rules are important, but it also creates a difficult thing for, it also creates a difficult call for defenders to make. And, we saw that 15-yard penalty, that didn't look like a 15-yard penalty where they play. So I don't know. It's tough to call. But either way, I mean, I thought Josh Allen was really good in this game. Obviously the big run was a huge thing. I thought he threw the ball well, was pretty efficient with everything. And, I thought the Bills were the better team, like I said.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the Steelers here? I mean, they again kind of made a habit out of being the team that gets knocked out badly in the wild card round year after year, which is again what happens here. I don't know. Any final thoughts here? I don't really have a lot to say.
I mean, we keep saying like this team needs a quarterback. This team should go all in on a quarterback, and we bring it up with like Atlanta, especially. Like I think they're a good candidate too. Is this the number one team? Like their trajectory changes if they go all in on a quarterback? Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, like you think about like the Aaron Rodgers thing, right? There are kind of rumors of Aaron Rodgers going to the Steelers. It does seem like if they could get like a great quarterback, or even like I do wonder what happens if they get Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, which is again why Kirk Cousins, his agent is amazing.
Sure.
And he's going to get a massive, massive contract this summer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's not the most popular guy in his own city right now. I don't think the Cowboys are going to react and do it, but like if this team just like traded a first round pick or something for Dak Prescott, overpaid for Dak Prescott, like does that like change your feelings about the Steelers? Because they have a good team, they have a good coach who knows how to win games, but like they continually like have just not figured out how to answer this quarterback position. And it's a year-long thing since Ben Roethlisberger, right?
Yeah, I mean that you could do that. I mean, also it's a pretty deep quarterback draft too. Maybe you could just try and trade up.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough because we got a long time till draft. We got to do our evaluations and all that. But like the top three guys, I think are going to go 1, 2, 3.
Gotcha.
So it's just going to come down to like, is Michael Penix worth trading up for? I don't know. So we'll see what that looks like. But I don't know. Like, do they have? They need a situation, I think, for that because this team's too talented to keep trotting out Mason Rudolph's, Kenny Pickett's, Mitch Trubisky rotations all year.
Yeah, probably that's probably reasonable. Also, there's a weird fumble situation, right? I mean, that was one of those weird things where it's like, I guess I didn't see a clip that like definitively showed that it was recovered by the Bills, but it totally was recovered by the Bills.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. Why don't we? Let's get into what we're here to talk about, previewing the divisional round. Kyle, I made up some ground in the show last week. You bet big on the Dallas Cowboys. That came back to bite you. But Kyle, only 7 games left to talk about.
7 games left. I got a little bit of time here to try and hold you off. And, I think I feel good about these picks. I think, we had a couple upsets this past week. I think the market corrects. I got to say, we're due for some great games here this week, I feel like, because we got a lot of duds on wild card weekend. Super wild card weekend was not so super outside of Lions and Rams. So, as an innocent bystander third party with no horse in the race, I hope we get really good games this weekend.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, although I have to bring up only one game with a line of under 6 right now.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what happens when there's a few upsets, right?
Yeah. Eric in the chat says we already know the dude on the right is picking Chiefs and Ravens. Eric, apparently not a fan of you, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have argued for Josh Allen for MVP on this podcast this season. Like, I get it. Like, obviously, I'm a Patriots fan, so there's some disdain there. Although there's disdain with the Bills and the Chiefs and the Ravens too. So I don't really know how that's any different. But like, the dude definitely flails around like a little bit of an idiot sometimes, and it's okay. He's still really talented. I'll admit it.
The dude definitely flails around like a little bit of an idiot. Put that on one of those like social media post things. Yeah. All right. Well, let's just talk about the the flailing idiot himself, and the Buffalo Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. First time ever, Patrick Mahomes will be in an away playoff game. He did play a Super Bowl in an opposing team state, in Tampa Bay Stadium, playing Tampa Bay. So kind of a bit of
Doesn't
an
count.
asterisk on the never playing in a way. I guess technically that was a neutral site, but it wasn't. Although it was also kind of a COVID game. So I don't know, weird situation. But for Chiefs Bills here, I mean, this is been a long time coming, right? I mean, the Chiefs
Yeah.
have beaten the Bills multiple times. Obviously, the 13-second game, but they also crushed them in a conference championship game the year that the Chiefs went on to lose to Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl. And then last year, we thought it was going to be a rematch, but the Bills ended up getting smoked by the Bengals in the divisional round. So a chance to exercise some demons here. The Bills are favored. They're at home. Kyle, who are you picking, and how many points are you putting on it?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things to unpack, I feel like, with this game. Obviously, this game from this season already, you have the history of this game is now just fascinating, right? We've seen the Mahomes versus Allen thing a few years now. We obviously have the 13-second game. We obviously have the lateral game from the regular season this year. These teams have had some battles, and so we're excited for it. I'm excited for this game. This is the marquee matchup of the weekend. You know, better eat your words here, Eric, because I'm picking the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, are you
I
editing
think
your notes now as because you have to prove Eric wrong?
no, I sent this to myself 23 minutes ago, and it says Bills right here, 1 point. I'm wagering 1 point on the game. I think both of these teams are really good. Obviously, they're in the divisional round of the playoffs for a reason. I think both of these coverage units are excellent. They're both top, I think, 10 in the league. And both of them have probably number 1 and number 2 as far as quarterback goes in the NFL. So I think all of that kind of goes in favor. We
Yeah.
constantly say the running game is not very important. I agree. But Buffalo is one of the best rushing offenses in the league, especially since Joe Barry took over on the offensive coordinator. Um, so especially since Joe Barry took over as the offensive play caller, Buffalo has become a offensive running juggernaut.
Joe Brady.
Joe Brady. Yeah, my bad. Joe Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Barry, somebody else.
Yeah, he's for the
Getting my
Packers.
coordinators mixed up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Joe Brady, they've become an offensive running juggernaut. So I think that is a huge part of this game for Buffalo. I think that, when you look at both of these teams schematically build their teams to stop the pass, they're both bottom 10 run defenses for a reason because they don't care about it as much. And I think Buffalo is more equipped to take advantage of that. And I think that's why Buffalo wins this game. So give me the Bills in this game. I got 23-16 in a nail biter again.
23-16. That's not that quite of a nail biter.
I mean, one score.
7 points is a good amount, I feel like.
Could be a game-winning touchdown, though.
Okay, well, typically when you predict 7 points, you don't mean 7 points, but with a last-second touchdown.
I'm calling a last-second touchdown. Josh Allen leads a game-winning drive in 12 seconds to win on Patrick Mahomes now.
Okay. Well, I ended up going 20-19. So I think it's a coin flip game. Kyle, I have bad news for you though. I am also picking the Bills to win. So congratulations, Chiefs.
Yeah, that's probably how it's going to go down. So there's a couple things I think we can unpack with this game, and a lot of it has to do with what we're gonna, what we looked at in that last game. That last game, obviously, the Bills jumped out early, so the Chiefs threw the ball a lot. They didn't throw the ball well though. And I think that's one of the things we have to look at, that if Buffalo is able to control the clock in this game, they're going to have, the home field advantage, all that. If they're able to run the ball and control the clock, and they did in that last game, they ran the ball for 28 times, 118 yards, and a touchdown. And, James Cook was, pretty good in 10 carries in that game. If they're able to control it that way and make Patrick Mahomes throw the ball to catch up, maybe, as crazy as it sounds, maybe they do have the advantage, because as good as Rashee Rice was last week, I'm not sure I'm ready to trust these Kansas City receivers to win that kind of game, especially in Buffalo against a good coverage unit. So I think that's a bit of a matchup problem for Kansas City and how these guys are going to get open consistently.
Yeah, and I mean, especially Rasul Douglas is supposedly going to be back in this game. That's the room. I don't think it's official, but it seems like he's planning on being back. If that's the case, I mean, and if he's healthy, from first time, he was huge. I mean, he shut down Rashee Rice when he was against him. He played a lot against Kelsey and was great against Kelsey. I think even without him, I do think they can cover well enough. I mean, let's be honest, it's the Mahomes factor that scares us, right? Like everything that we've seen so far this season leans towards the Bills should be favored. Both teams have had very good defenses this season. I don't think it's obvious one has been better than the other. The Bills, I think Allen has put together a better season this season than Mahomes. I think that I don't love either of these supporting casts outright. I think the Bills do have a better supporting cast offensively for the Chiefs, but it's like, could I see Mahomes just making a couple of plays and could I see Allen throwing a dumb interception? 100%.
Yeah, and that's always the big factor with this team, right? It's just it has Patrick Mahomes and you don't, and that's the biggest factor. And not to mention that their defense may be able to keep them in this game until Patrick Mahomes is able to make a big play and pull a couple big plays out. And I think when it comes to the Bills, I did say that they need to run the ball, but I think a big factor, like, we are due for a big Stephon Diggs game, right? Like, this is a guy who's constantly, I feel like Chris Collinsworth. Here's a guy who is constantly called among the top 5 or 6 receivers in the league, I think, even before this season. And I mean, he's just been downright kind of, non-existent, it feels like at times in the second half of this season. And, he had an okay game against the Steelers, obviously, and he's got a really tough assignment. But I think he needs to have a big game in this one because they have a tough assignment, right? And going against these corners who are physical in man coverage, who are tough to score on, tough to move the ball on, they have to be able to move the ball in the air a little bit. And I think it's going to involve Diggs trying to win one-on-one on the outside against these guys because they have to find an answer for it. I don't think they're going to be able to play this game just through the middle the entire time and running the ball. So if they can hit a couple big plays on the outside with Diggs, I think that adds a huge layer to it too. And I think I just trust that more than the Kansas City receivers.
Yeah, it was weird. So we should mention these two teams played each other December 10th. So, just a little bit over a month ago, which is nice because, 3 of these teams together, but 2 of those were earlier in the season. This one recently, the leading receiver in that game was James Cook. And by a good margin, he had 83 receiving yards. The next closest was Dawson Knox with 36. So I do think they're going to go with they're going to find other targets. I agree. It'd be great for Diggs to have a big play. And that kind of feels like what the Bills almost need to do, right? The Chiefs are going to send pressure. There's going to be one-on-one matchups. If they can, it doesn't have to be Diggs. Did we get, playoff Gabe Davis to show up here? I don't know. But if they can get someone else to, get 2 or 3 of those big chunk plays. And I also do wonder how much Josh Allen's rushing ability could come into play here. And again, we talk about the turnovers of Allen. It's not like the Chiefs have been good at protecting the football this season either. I mean, they've fumbled a decent amount on top of some interceptions. So, both teams are capable of the other team.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. And, that was kind of the big thing in that game too, is that there were a few turnovers and that was a big part of it. And, as good as, Rashee Rice has been, he had a fumble in that game and it was a pretty big fumble. And he had a few drops in this last game, even though he had monster numbers. So, I think that's going to play a big part is who limits their mistakes. And while it's easy to say, well, Patrick Mahomes limits mistakes better than anybody, so you lean that. I just don't know if I can trust anybody else on his team to do it. And it's crazy. It's just crazy to say that. But that's where we're at with this Chiefs team. And so, yeah, I'm leaning Buffalo just because I think they're a little bit better at the little things.
Have you done the, oh, God, the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl again thought yet?
I've thought about it. Yeah.
I think so. I think it seems more and more possible every single. I feel like it's crazy. I feel like I've been really high on the Chiefs, a lot higher than most people have been. During their losing streak and all of that. But I'm still keep picking against them, so obviously I can't be that high on them.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely this is not a good Chiefs team. Like, it's not that, it's a good team. It's not a great team, and it's not a good Chiefs team. Like, that's basically the expectations we have for it. It has beaten up a lot of, it has beaten up some bad defenses, but we've seen it against good teams really struggle and really have to fight its way to the points. But they still have things that they're really good at, even beyond Patrick Mahomes, who is fantastic. They still have this defense that has been, just as impressive as some of the best groups in the league and has some really impressive players. So I think all of that put together makes it, still doable that this team can win it all.
Should be an awesome game. I think no matter what happens, if it's a close game, that's awesome. If it's a blowout in either direction, I think there's an interesting story there. But last thought I have, Kyle, is Sean McDermott if the Bills game?
Fired? No, I don't think he will be.
You
I
don't
think
think
he
so?
saved his job.
I think you gotta. I almost think you gotta. I feel like if you can't beat the Chiefs now, when are you beating the Chiefs?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if they're judging it that way though. Maybe they should, but like,
What would you
I don't
do
know.
then?
I don't know. Like, I'm pretty whatever about McDermott just in general. I think he's
Hmm.
obviously a good defensive coach.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that they need this personnel to get a little bit better before I'm giving him the knife. Like their defense was pretty banged up this year. There's a lot of built-in excuses. The defense has basically suffered. It feels like a major injury almost every week. Um, and
Hmm.
they still need another receiver, which isn't really on Sean McDermott. So if they're able to address those, maybe you give him one more shot and talk yourself into it.
Oh, this is a good one, Kyle. Yes, he's definitely fired if they lose. Bring in his rival from New England, Big Bill. What about Bill Belichick to the Bills? What do you think there?
Sure, man. I don't know.
What would be what's
I,
worst case scenario for Belichick for you?
worst case, like
Yeah,
realistic worst case.
yeah. Like obviously the Ravens aren't going to get him, but that of the team get him.
Probably the Steelers. Like what if Tomlin decides he wants to do something different or just retires or something? Or,
Hmm.
people have talked about Mike Tomlin being fired this year, which seems inexplicable. But like if that happens, and like I wouldn't like that all that much.
Yeah. What about the Falcons?
I'm really the Falcons aren't on my radar. Like the 28-3 jokes are funny. Like
Hmm.
we beat them, and like I guess the Eagles would be another one. Like if the Eagles
Yeah,
actually fired Sirianni, like the Pennsylvania would definitely bother me just in general. Like if he ends up on
that'd be
either
good.
of those two teams.
Hmm.
But yeah. Anyone else beyond that, like go do your thing, go get the wins record, whatever.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's move on. 3 games left to talk about. Let's go. Let's go. Packers Niners. Kyle.
Mhm.
Tied for the highest spread. There's 2 games with a 9.5 point spread here. Well, I'll ask you, who do you have winning this game, and how many points are you putting on? I meant to mention at the beginning of the show, we have 16 total points we have to put on these games. And again, you don't want points. So if you bet more points, that means you're confident that the game will go that way. Because if it goes wrong, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I got 7 points on this game.
Okay.
I picked San Francisco. Ironically, I looked at it because I had to remind myself midweek. I picked San Francisco over Kansas City for the Super Bowl just before the season. Um, and I'm sticking to my guns here. San Francisco is the best team, at least in the NFC. Maybe Baltimore's better. Baltimore did beat them up. So I'm riding with San Francisco here. I'm not phased by I'm not going to overreact to the Packers' big win. They did look fantastic. Jordan Love has been fantastic. I think this is a different animal, though. I think Green Bay is really going to struggle to stop this offense. So give me the Niners here. I'm risking 7 points.
Okay, interesting. I'm trying to figure out how I want to play this now because I'm down 4 points. So obviously I'm picking the Niners as well. Trying to figure out how many points I want to gamble. I'm trying to figure out which game feel the most confident in. It's tough, but I think I'm gonna go. Okay, I'll go. No, I'm gonna put. So how many points can I put on this game? 13, is that it? I'm gonna put all my points except for saving one for each. Yeah, 13 points. I'll put 13 points on San Francisco here.
Okay, so you're way more. I mean, we're both confident. You seem way, way more confident than me. So
I,
go
if,
ahead.
if I would be doing around what you're doing if I was in first, I want to be able to make up some points. I want to have that chance, and so this way you're gonna put points on other teams, and then I can make it up that way.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. So let's break it down then. How does Green Bay stop San Francisco?
Exactly. I mean that's why I'm putting 13 points on San Francisco.
Yeah. And we did just say this last week, or at least I just said this last week when it came
Hmm.
to how do they stop Dallas? But I mean, this is Dallas on crack, right? And I mean, I think one of the big factors that I overlooked definitely with Dallas is just how poor their running game was all season. The running stats I thought were a little skewed from that game, anyways. And I mean, Christian McCaffrey should just have a field day in this game, right? And
Hmm.
McCaffrey should dominate. I think the play action game is going to open up when he dominates. And I think all of that put together is just saying, I think San Francisco can get off the plane, get off the bus, get off wherever they're coming from. They're not on the plane, they're a home team. Get off wherever they're coming from, get out of their cars and drop 40 in this game. And I think they can hang 40. And maybe Green Bay does score again. This offense has been electric since like week 12. But I don't know if it's enough to keep up with San Francisco, man.
Yeah, I mean, listen, San Francisco also blew out the Cowboys this season, right? So there's that. But I just think in general, I mean, we could start with I think Green Bay needs like multiple turnovers to win this game. I do, which is possible, right? There's always that X factor, and Purdy has shown momentary flashes of being someone who puts the ball in harm's way, right? He's not, I don't know, he's not Zach Wilson, right? But every now and then he will kind of. I mean, we all remember the Baltimore game, and we'll say that Joe Barry is someone who will mix things up defensively. I have to say, a lot of Packers fans on my video saying, "Oh, well, what are you doing? Criticizing this Packers defense? Have you seen the last 3 weeks?" And I kind of like, well, yeah, but I also saw the first 15 as well.
Yeah. I think all of it matters, and not just with the discombobulated Cowboys. They did play well last week. Give them credit for that. I'm not taking too much away from Justin Fields. So I just we'll see. If this is the defense that they can play with all season, then yes, they can absolutely make it to the Super Bowl. But our numbers are led to believe that is not the team we're going to see routinely, right? So that is not the team we can bet on seeing towards the end of the year, and that's just not the team I'm going to bet on seeing at this point at this stage. So, and especially against an offense like San Francisco's, which the toughest thing about San Francisco is just how much they can change everything. Like, this team does everything really well. They can play, they can run the ball. They can run inside. They can run outside. They can play in play action. They can play out of shotgun. They use motion really well. I mean, we have continually called Kyle Shanahan one of the best coaches in football, and I mean, his offensive innovation continues to be one of the best in the league. And it's hard for any defense. Never mind a defense that isn't very good.
Right. I mean, there's been very few moments where San Francisco has had down offensive games. It was against Cleveland, against Minnesota, and then against the Ravens, obviously, recently. Other than that, they pretty much rolled by everybody. It's not an I don't know. The thing is, it's like, so they played really well these past 3 weeks, but I don't know if it's related or if it just happened, right? Like, I mean, because they also did play. I mean, last week wasn't perfect. I don't know what to do if Dak Prescott apart, right? How much of that was them? How much of that was Dak? I just don't know. And it's worth mentioning, literally the 3 weeks before that, if you go back 3 weeks prior, they gave up 30 points to Bryce Young, and then they let Baker Mayfield and Tommy DeVito win Offensive Player of the Year in back-to-back weeks.
Offensive Player of the Week, but yeah.
And,
there were opportunities for the Cowboys in that game. Like, it felt like missed opportunities, right? Like, I know they moved the ball in the second half. You can call it garbage time. I think it was garbage time, but they still threw the ball some, and I thought there was more opportunities in the first half. So I think it's I just think, yeah, it has played better, but I still just don't know if it's good enough for this animal. And yeah, Brock Purdy, we have said, despite what the interception numbers say, has been willing to put the ball in harm's way this season, but I just feel more comfortable with the weapons he has at his disposal compared to anything that Dallas trotted out there, or especially what Chicago and what was the team before that, Atlanta, especially what they trotted out there. I forget who they played. Minnesota. Sorry,
Minnesota. Yeah,
Minnesota and Chicago and Dallas. Yeah.
For sure. Again, San Francisco's been great this season, and their defense has been really good this season. But I think, to me, that's the way that the Packers can win, right? Is they win this game, 35-2, which, it's a hot take. Is Jordan Love the best team in the NFC still in the playoffs?
Best quarterback?
Yeah.
Who's left? Him, Purdy. Yeah, I would put him over Purdy right now. Jared Goff, yeah, probably. And Baker? Yeah, so I guess so. Yeah, I mean,
Kyle Trask.
Yeah, Kyle Trask didn't make my list. But yeah, I mean, he's been that good. He's definitely played like it the second half of the season. So I guess, as we say that, and we've picked apart this Packers defense, I think they're going to be able to run the ball and open up that play action on them. Let's go to the other side where this is probably the Packers' strength of this team and what they're going to rely on in this game is being able to move the ball in San Francisco if they can. And what are your prospects here? Because obviously last week, like it was really good and it was really impressive. There was a lot of wide open guys, and I questioned some of the coverage unit stuff that Dallas was running last week. San Francisco, it's a good defense. How do you feel like they're going to match up against this Green Bay offense?
Yeah. Let me know how's it. Is the audio all right here? No, internet's kind of
It's a little choppy again.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why it's doing this. It was same thing I was doing the other, last week, and it was working fine. But yeah. Anyway, sorry. What was the question?
How does this Green Bay offense, which is probably the strength of their team, move on this San Francisco defense?
I mean, I don't. I feel like it's weird. I don't know because they're so different. The Niners have so many corners who can cover, and the Packers have so many different receivers who can get open. Right? Like there's so many. I have no who's going to be on who and what's going to work. I mean, it's the LaFleur thing. We're going to game plan, scheme up. The Niners like to play their cover 3 zone, then they like to play man on third downs, and it's sort of like I scheme stuff up against that. The running game's going to work that well. They can at least throw the ball well.
Yeah. And they should be able to throw the ball well. I will say one of the things that was impressive about Love last week was, his ability to throw while like seeing pressure come at him, I thought was really impressive. And San Francisco is going to try and bring pressure again in this game. And can he have a similar success doing that? Because they do have talented pass rushers in San Francisco, and they should be able to work on this offensive line, I think, a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, are they going to be able to run the ball to try and keep those pass rushers off him? And then is Jordan Love going to be able to make those same throws off his back foot that he did last week consistently? I think that's going to be the big thing for this Green Bay offense. If they can do that again, yeah, absolutely. They may have a chance to actually score with this team. But, it seems like a lot to bet on that twice in a row.
Yeah, but again, I mean, it would be just hilarious, right? If you're about Rodgers.
Yeah, if Jordan Love beats San Francisco in his first try after all of those Aaron Rodgers things, that would be pretty fun.
Yeah, that'd be good. A line, half points. Is that a lot for you?
That seems high. It does seem high. But I do think they are the better team. I don't know. I figured it would be more like 7.5, honestly.
Yeah, the half feels high. Let's move on. Let's do Bucs Lions. Why don't we? Kyle, I'll ask you again. How many? Which team are you picking and how many points?
All right. I got 3 points on this game, and I'm gonna pick the Detroit Lions. It's a close game for me. I like it a little bit more than I like the Bills pick just because I think both of those teams can obviously win the Super Bowl. But I think Detroit just has enough of what it takes. Stafford was obviously really, really good in that game, and I don't think Baker's going to be the same. But there is a roadmap, I think, to Tampa Bay moving the ball in this Detroit defense. And then it just comes down to can Tampa score in the red zone like Los Angeles couldn't in that game? But yeah, I think that's going to be a big factor in this game. But really what it comes down to is I really want to see the scheme Tampa Bay's defense runs against Detroit's offense, because Detroit's offense, like I said, the unpredictability of it, the ability to throw the ball and run the ball, I think is a huge factor in this game. And Jared Goff this season has been pretty effective when facing blitzes. Like it's been kind of a, under the radar story is just how much better he's been than what he has been previously in his career, is how well he's handled those situations. And, you could point to games like the Vikings games where he was electric against the blitz. And, if he's able to handle that again, I think Detroit's I think there's a big blowout factor if Jared Goff is able to handle that again and play well. And if he's able to handle the pressure in this game, I think Detroit can absolutely put up a ton of points.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. I don't know if I would bank on Jared Goff handling pressure well. That's just not usually something that happens with him. But it's possible. And here's what I think. So the way the first game kind of went down is, these teams played each other back in week 6. The Buccaneers were 3-1. The Lions were 4-1. We also have a super chat. Just so you know, you're the best. Oh, well, thank you.
Thanks.
I think I said thank you, but I just assumed it was to me, not to us.
Oh, well, either way.
Yeah, I mean, it was just to you. I
Thank
mean,
you
then I
anyways.
apologize for saying you.
Well, it's all good. Whoever it's to, we both say thank you.
Cameron says he's Team Kyle. No, you're just Kyle. That's this.
I think everyone's Team Kyle at this point. This is
Well,
a pro
you're
Kyle
hack.
podcast.
Better hope. The Lions, win this one. Then I'm picking Lions as well. I have a point on them. I'm going with a 21-19 final score here. I think that so the way the first game went, Tampa Bay tried blitzing and it was kind of working, but then they kind of did these wide receiver screens that were really good counter. I do wonder if maybe you see Tampa Bay kind of sitting on a wide receiver screen here, try to get a big play that way. That might be a move, but I think they're, because Lions did not run the ball well in that game, and that's kind of a nice thing that Tampa Bay has is they're one of the few teams that can actually kind of don't get pushed around in the trenches against Detroit in that area. So because of that, that's a real notable factor in all of this. And then also Tampa Bay's corners are healthy. I still think the Lions will move the ball enough. I think they'll get those wide receiver screens, get Tampa Bay out of man coverage at times, and they'll eat them alive in zone for sure. So I think the Lions will move it enough that I am picking them as well. But again, Tampa Bay has a puncher's chance. If they can win the turnover battle, which these are two defenses that like to get turnovers. If they can win the turnover battle, and if Baker Mayfield can continue baking here against the defense that has given up points this season. Again, Tampa Bay only had 6 the first time they played, but completely different offense from then as it is now. So, they have a puncher's chance. I think 6.5 points feels high, but I think Detroit deserves to be favored.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree because Amon-Ra had a huge game that game. Jameson Williams had a big touchdown in that game. But yeah, it's just going to come down to because, like you said, if they handle the pressure, if Goff handles the pressure well, Tampa defaults into their zone defense, right? Their coverage protection. And that's also a nightmare against Detroit because Detroit has, just this awesome zone offense with the way they get guys open. So it's really kind of a lose-lose scenario, it feels like, unless they're able to win with pressure and win with blitzing. Which, just kind of brings me to that point. Like I said, Jared Goff has been good this season with it. This stat is from A to Z Sports. I don't know this website, but I found this article here when I was reading a little bit pre-show. The Lions have a fully healthy offensive line for this game. It's happened just 8 games this season. And Goff in those 8 games was blitzed on 47.4% of his dropbacks and completed 71% of his passes for 1,270 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So it's going to be tough to move the ball, and it's going to be tough to slow this team down, and that's just what I worry about because I still think this is a good Tampa Bay defense. I don't think it's quite the same of what we've seen in years past, and Detroit's offense just seems like a really difficult equation to solve.
I don't know. This stat feels a little bit. I mean, what's the moon looking like right now, Kyle? I don't. I get it, but we were talking eight games and then 1 blitzed in those. Well, what were the teams they're playing? What's the situation? I don't know. I want more context.
Yeah, there's definitely needs to be context due there, but I think it also speaks to. I think he has made genuine strides. Like his against the blitz numbers have been better this season than in years past.
Sure, but again, I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying I still think that. I mean, I don't know. I went back and watched the game the first time. He did have his moments of the first time they played. He had his moments struggling there. I was thinking about the Baltimore game where things did not go well. I think that if you get a team that blitzes and constantly blitzes, and that's what they're known for, and can mix up coverages. I'm not saying he can't be successful, but I'm saying I think it's more to safety valves. I think it's more to having wide screens and having things like that. That might be the reason why he's had more success this year than him just getting better at it.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. So that's what I'm looking at least for defense. Looking at the other side of the ball, obviously Baker, like we said, he played terrific last week. Is he able to continue? Is he going to continue taking care of the ball like that, being smart with the football? That's my first question. And then second, this Detroit defense obviously struggles but they have handled the run pretty well this season. And,
Mhm.
you know, they Tampa Bay is not afraid to run the football. We've talked about this a lot. It's been a little bit better this season, but still they like to run the ball a lot. You know, if they're able to kind of force a lot of long down situations, how does Tampa Bay handle that? And more specifically, how does Baker handle those moments? Is he able to not put the ball in harm's way in those spots?
Zachary Stewart says Mayfield is only behind Pat Mahomes in overall playoff passer rating. I'm assuming that's nice. Baker Mayfield, clearly a great playoff performer. Listen, I don't know how much I take stock into all of that, but it's a fun stat nonetheless. I don't know. I mean, okay, he's protected the football in terms of he hasn't thrown interceptions. Mayfield does take chances, right? Like he does put the ball in
Yeah.
harm's way. I think it's going to come down to can Detroit capitalize there more than anything there. And I don't know. I mean, it does feel like they should have their opportunities downfield in this game. I think that you brought up the running game. I think that every time they run the ball, it's going to be a disaster in this game. I don't think they're going to have a single effective run all game.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's going to be a huge part of it. And I guess the one thing you could say too, like, you know, Aiden Hutchinson just become kind of that game wrecker. Um, at least you could say that Tampa has formidable tackles, right? Like
Hmm.
maybe that's something that they can help out a little bit. Aiden Hutchinson doesn't have as monstrous as a game in this one potentially. So I guess beyond just like a potential winning the turnover battle, what would be Tampa's path to victory here?
I think throw the ball effectively. I think throw the ball often and be able to push the down the field that way. And I think constantly confuse Jared Goff and get them and stop the run well.
Yeah. Can they win another game like last week where Mike Evans isn't good?
I mean, well, if they get 50-yard touchdowns from other guys like they did last week, yes. But I would say yes. I would say it's possible. I think that's not the easiest pathway to victory, but I think if Detroit is doubling Mike Evans all game and other guys are able to come through, yeah, I think it's possible.
Yeah. I think that's fair. So I do think it is a fascinating game. I could see it being close, but it feels like it's Detroit's time right now. So we're just set up for the NFC North NFC Championship game.
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun. What's the ideal NFC Championship game? Is it Lions Packers?
Oh, just for storyline,
Yeah.
probably.
And just entertainment too.
Obviously, yeah, it would be. I still think the most fun game is probably San Francisco, Detroit, potentially.
Maybe I would
Yeah,
just be a little worried that could San Francisco run away with it.
they could. They definitely could. But we do get the Kyle Shanahan versus Ben Johnson. Like I think those would be, watching those two kind of duke it out. I'm not even referring to the quarterbacks, which is funny. Like watching
Yeah.
Shanahan and Ben Johnson like
Mhm.
just, go against each other would be fascinating.
Yeah, I think you're kind of making my point for me a little bit. It would either way, whichever four teams could be interesting. Even I don't know, even Bucks Packers has a storyline there because that's another thing. But although no one wants the Bucks to win this game, right? Only Bucks, which is weird because like people, well, I should say everyone wants the Lions to win, right?
Yeah, I think the Lions
What
have
was this
become
comment? Jackson drinks Pepsi just in the chat. Why are you doing this?
someone mentioning you trained your pet alligator to go on coke runs.
Oh, I see. Got it.
Uh, um, but yeah, what we're talking. I think Detroit has become the innocent bystanders team. Definitely.
No, it should be honestly very wholesome game too. Like I was thinking going in, like, oh man, Lions fans are gonna be like mad at me because I picked them to lose last week. And then every Lions fan I see is like, whoa, hey, nice that our teams are playing each other. Let's have some fun.
Yeah. Uh, they're like, we picked our team to lose a lot of times too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like sure, of course, yeah, of course you didn't believe in us.
Uh, yeah. I think that's. Anything else you want to add about this game?
No, we can move on because we already talked about the Bucks a decent amount, and again, fun season for the Lions. I think it probably will continue. Final game, Texans Ravens here, Kyle. So, who are you picking it, and then how many points? We could do the math, but do the math for us.
Yeah, my math says 5 points. That is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I got 5 points here. Give me Baltimore. Another one, similar to Green Bay. I'm not going to overreact to the Super Wildcard weekend performance, although it was impressive. And you could say that how does CJ Stroud have success against EPA's number 2 defensive coverage unit? Well, they just had success against EPA's number 1 defensive coverage unit. So
Mhm.
maybe they do it again. But I like the Ravens here. I think they're better top to bottom. The one thing I'm worried about for the Ravens in this game is getting pressure consistently on CJ Stroud. They have a lot of pass rushers banged up. Maybe Clowney plays in this game, so that's a factor. But how are they able to get pressure on him? Can they force him to make some mistakes, make some rookie mistakes? I think that's a possibility. But overall, I think the Ravens are still just a better team in almost every facet of this game. So give me Baltimore.
Yeah, so I have a point on the Ravens. I'm picking them to win 26-20. I also would have probably put more on this game had I been in first or if we were tied or something like that. But again, got to make up ground. So hopeful, for me, Texans victory here, and we're tied. If everything else, if we predict every other game right, Kyle, we also are in lockstep. We picked all 4 games the same way, so that almost guarantees an 0-for-4 stretch, I think, by us. But the you know, uh, it's interesting. I mean, so yes, they just dominated the defense. That doesn't mean they're going to also dominate. Doesn't mean that they're defense proof all of a sudden, right? Like it's possible they just had a good matchup or the Browns had a bad day. Both of those things could be the case.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely could be the case. And I think they did have a good plan for handling Myles Garrett in that game and just creating matchups for themselves. And that's very much the case. But, you know, Baltimore, I know the numbers are, I just said the numbers, Cleveland was number 1, Baltimore's number 2. I still think Baltimore's a bit better. And I think they're a bit better over the middle. And I think they're better on the outside too. And I think those are factors that they're going to have in this game. And I think it's going to be tougher to throw over the middle on this team. They have these safeties. They have Kyle Hamilton. It's not going to be easy to just drop back and throw like they did over and over and over again against that Cleveland team. Maybe they do it again. Maybe. But at the same time, I'm still betting on this Ravens defense, which has been the most impressive unit of the season by far.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. The defense is very good, and again, I think it's different if Houston has their healthy receivers, right? But like, it does feel like Nico Collins. Like, I'll ask this question: is there a way the Texans win this game without a couple of turnovers going their way or Nico Collins having a big day?
I guess still potentially, yeah. I would say that even with it, there's still a chance, but it's smaller than the Buccaneers' chance against Detroit, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
almost they would need another Brevin Jordan style, like 75-yard touchdown. Dalton Schultz would have to play a lot better than he did in that Cleveland game. I know they had the 1 touchdown catch, but he also had a drop. They would need a couple things to go that way. They would need to run the ball well. And then, yeah, I think the big thing would just be like, we're waiting for this prove it stage, and maybe this is the time to prove it. But, the factor of Lamar on the playoffs stage is a question that we need answered, and maybe some of it's unfair. I think some of it is justified, though. Can he answer that on this stage? I think that's going to be the big question too.
Yeah. We have a comment from Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is in the chat here, Kyle, saying, I think Raven are going to win. Lamar can get out of the pocket. That's a great analysis here from Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, he doesn't know how to spell his name, though. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Or no, that Raven is plural there.
Yeah, I guess that is the maybe that does
He's a
check
busy
out for
guy,
education.
right? He doesn't have time to fact check the stuff.
That's clearly the case. We know he doesn't
yeah.
fact check. So, yeah, I mean, it's a okay. Thanks, Aaron Rodgers.
Sorry, I derailed the conversation. Going back, if somehow the Ravens lose this, is Lamar the Joel Embiid of the NFL? I mean, yeah, right. I mean, like Lamar, this is the Lamar question of Lamar's not gonna. He has to get it done in the playoffs. I think he does in this game. Again, 9.5 points is a lot of points, though, and like I think the Texans are very Nico Collins dependent at this point. But like, I don't know. We've seen Marlon Humphrey have bad days, right? Like we've seen that. Like it's not out of the question. So like I do think there's a chance they put up some points. Lamar's going to have to move the ball, and I do think Houston's going to try and keep things in front of them. They're going to try and slow things down, force the Ravens to have these 12-play methodical drives, which they're very much built to do. But still, it's a lot easier when you can get a 7-play touchdown drive than a 14-play touchdown drive.
Yeah. And when they have those two edge rushers, it's pretty good. Like it's not a tier 1 edge rushing duo, but like
Uh-huh.
Grenard and Will Anderson, like that's something at least. And we saw it make a huge difference, I thought, in that Cleveland game, just having those guys out there. And you know, the tough thing is though, like when you look at those guys, yes, they are good pass rushers, but there's a different game between rushing the passer and rushing Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And just how are they going to handle that responsibility? Because the biggest thing, like even more important than getting to the quarterback, is not breaking containment. And if they break containment on Lamar Jackson, he is going to torch this team, right? He's just going to run for 150 yards and he'll be content doing that. So, how do they handle that responsibility? I want to see that on the big stage too. But yeah, I mean, there are some pathways to the Texans winning this game. I agree. It's just, it requires, you know, some of their guys are awesome and have been awesome all season, but I think a lot of it also would require Baltimore not being up to their standard.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, yeah, it's which is again possible, right? It's football. It's they happen. Crazier things have happened certainly. And I don't know. I am surprised by this line. I think 9.5 is a lot. I think that I think if this is week 14, I don't know if the line is 9.5.
Yeah, there's some big lines, it seems like this week. It's kind of crazy. I guess
Hmm.
they're just anticipating that. I don't know.
Yeah, or maybe yeah. I mean, do the playoffs create some big lines? I don't know. And the other thing too is the Ravens pass block really well. I mean, they're one of the best pass blocking teams in football. And again, part of that is it's hard. How do you pass rush Lamar? Right? Like you kind of have to play run defense while you're pass rushing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the impossible question, right? When he's on his game, he's impossible to stop when he's on because one mistake and he's getting an 80-yard touchdown, whether he's throwing it or running it. So it'll be fascinating to see. But I don't know if this Texans defense, as good as they've played at times this season, is going to be up to scratch for this game.
Did you see any of the discourse between the JJ Watt versus PFF stuff?
I ignored a lot of it. I mean,
Uh huh.
like the thing is like all of this stuff is just. First of all, like I think JJ Watt wasn't really like doesn't obviously know how PFF works. And I
Hmm.
think that's the problem is like PFF doesn't do a good job of kind of explaining their methodology.
Okay,
Like
I
you
should
have to,
say what happened real quick, just for people that
yeah,
maybe
go
missed
for it.
it. So the PFF the account page tweeted out, top 4 quarterbacks of this, of wildcard weekend, and it was 4 quarterbacks. CJ Stroud wasn't on there. JJ Watt sort of posted, it's like something just along the lines of like, how could CJ Stroud not be on here? How could his grade be this low? Can't believe people treat this like gospel. And then also went on to Pat McAfee's show and straight up said PFF sucks and was talked about how they think they know everything and smarter than the coaches when they aren't, and we're the ones who know everything. And that created a lot of discourse.
Yeah. And he's also mad because I think they left his brother off like their all pro team or whatever.
Hmm.
Like
I mean,
I
that
think that
that
was
seems to
another
be what
part.
he's mad at is that they're higher on Miles Garrett than T.J. Watt, and they're a little bit lower on C.J. Stroud, who's obviously Watt played for the Texans for almost all his career.
Yeah. I mean, like I think the correct answer is probably there's two sides to this.
Hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't react as strongly as JJ Watt would,
Hmm.
but like I do think there are some inaccuracies sometimes with PFF
Hmm.
grading.
Sure.
And a lot of it is because it is film review.
Hmm.
It's
Right.
someone watching and grading based on a review.
Hmm.
And he's saying that, I think one of the examples he said was well, our team had a grade and it was completely different from PFF's grade. Well, that's because it's two different people's interpretation of a play. Like that
Sure. Or
definitely
and
happens.
also, what's the grading system? Like, what system are you like? Is it possible, like, if one person's doing a system of grading every play 1 through 5, and the other one's grading every play 1 through 100? Well, it's going to create a different outcome.
Yeah. So like I don't know. It's just like I read that stuff like, and the key thing is like you could take all the tools you want. Like I use PFF because I do think it's a good resource. Like I do
Hmm.
think it is helpful, like backing up what you watch. And there are things
Hmm.
that you miss. And guess what? Someone who's doing film review for a living and watching a guy, like if someone's watching, just for example, And because he missed all pro team, I was talking about it this week. Like Chris Lindstrom. Like I know Christian Lindstrom's very good, but I'm not watching every single Chris Lindstrom play, right? And so having someone who's physically watching every Chris Lindstrom play for review is a lot more helpful than me saying, "Oh, Chris Lindstrom's really good. He should have been an All-Pro." That's helpful. So I just think there are things like that that need to be taken into account. But I also think you should trust your eye test at times too. Some of you probably shouldn't trust your eye test, but I think a lot of people should trust your eye test. So, the answer is, watch the games, use the tools and resources that you have at your disposal, and come to your own opinions.
Yeah, a couple things. One thing that's also funny, offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick of the Texans used to be a PFF grader on top of this. So that's just what makes all this thing some added humor there. And my thing is, if you say, hey, I see the PFF grade, but I watched the game and I disagree, cool, we're good. All right, let's have a discussion. If you say, how could CJ Stroud have a lower PFF grade than Jordan Love when their passer rating was the same? I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. Or, yeah, I mean, that stuff just kills me every time. Well, Jordan or CJ Stroud won and Matthew Stafford lost. How can Matthew Stafford be better? It's like, okay, man, we're just agreeing to disagree here. Let's move on.
And it's also worth mentioning 90% of the people are just arguing for their favorite team. And I, all get worked up on Twitter about it. And it's like, well, they're just, and it's like, well, they're just a Texans fan. That's why they're saying this half the time.
CJ Stroud is really good. I think he did make a few mistakes last week. It's okay.
Yeah. That's fine. And the funny thing is, his grade was really good. Like I think it was like 78 or something like that. Like for a game grade, that's good.
Yeah. People love to voice their opinions. It's okay.
All right. Well, that's Texans, Ravens, and some bonus thoughts on a Twitter controversy that means nothing. Kyle, that's our show. Let them know where to find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin. And make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Of course, like audio only podcast. Anywhere you get your audio only podcast, just search On the Sideline Podcast. Should be available there. In future weeks, I'll try and get the internet thing figured out. What I did was just if anyone's interested in why the internet is my router doesn't extend kind of to the entire house. If I put it in my office, I can't really get to the bedroom. So what I kind of did was put it in the middle of the house, and then I bought a big Ethernet cord to connect it to and from my computer and the router during podcast. But now it seemed, and at first it seemed like it was working, but for some reason now it's not working so well. So I don't know. Maybe I need to just move the router in here when I record podcasts and then move it back out when I'm done. But I'll work on that, everybody. Apologize about that.
It's all good. I don't. My router's in my room, so it works out for me. So
yeah, that's at least it was passable this time. At least I think it was right. Like there was a couple moments, but
yeah, once he came back on, it was fine.
Yeah, cool. So okay, well, maybe Zachary says maybe the Ethernet lines outside fell into a Florida sinkhole. I think that might have been it. Actually, good point.
Yeah, I would say that's the correct answer.
Probably. Just like
TFF
we gave all correct answers here. Yeah. Kyle, do you think we'll do better than we did last week? Well, I only got 2 games right. Did you do better than that?
No, we both went 2-2. I think we picked all the games the same, didn't we?
I thought we had maybe one differently, but you might.
No, because we both picked the Rams. That was our upset, wasn't it?
Yeah, I ended up going technically 1-5, but I switched one of mine before. I switched the Bucs game before it happened, so I'm giving myself 2-4 credit.
Oh, okay. So I had Eagles. I got that wrong. So I got Cowboys. I think I did the same. So, yeah,
okay.
1-5.
Well, we'll do. Still remember that 1 year that we went 0-8 combined in the divisional round. I promise we'll get one right this week.
I think we're both going 4-0. Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. I kind of hope we don't though. That's not as fun.
It is for me. I need a win. So
okay, yeah. Are you getting nervous at all? I mean, 7 games. You go 7-0 here. You're champion.
This happened to me before, where I was leading into the playoffs and lost the points, and that was the difference.
I remember you were leading in the conference championship, and that was when you picked the Chiefs, the Bengals, and that was what flipped it.
Yeah. So it's all right. We're gonna try and win this one out. Still got a few games left. Feel confident this week. We'll see how it goes next week.
Yes, of course. everyone, we will be here with better internet, midnight Eastern. Or no, not midnight Eastern. We're moving it up, right? We're doing 10:30 Eastern now, right?
10:30 Eastern. Yes,
Mhm.
let's do that.
Yeah, 10:30
Oh,
Eastern, right here. So this way, we can get it out a little bit earlier, and we can get the bed at a hour on top of it. So everyone be on the lookout for that. We'll be recapping 4 games, and then we'll only have 3 games left, Kyle.
yeah. Getting close to the end time and end of football season, and
Which is basically
you
the end
know,
of time.
yeah, and get ready for draft coverage.
Yeah, I feel like it's just the playoffs are too exciting though. Like I don't think about like, oh no, it's almost over because I'm just so excited for the next game.
Your team's in it, so that helps.
Sure, but
It
just in
was
general, I usually feel that way.
it is in general. Last week was a pretty rough week, I will say. Like the
Yeah.
games just weren't competitive.
No, the
Um,
last week was tough. I mean, obviously, it helps when one of the blowouts is your team winning. Like that's always fun. We never talked
yeah,
about they stopped the tush push.
yeah, they did.
That was
I
fun.
mean, they shut down that running game. They really did. Vita
Uh-huh.
Vea, man.
Yeah. Great stuff. And Levante David was Levante David. And Clash of Cansey, all of a sudden. We didn't even talk about him. Unreal.
Yeah, they're the defensive line is playing well at the right time, right?
Yeah. You're gonna be so mad if the Bucs win, aren't you? If somehow this team ends up in the conference championship.
After Brady's team last year, yeah, I'd be pretty pissed.
Yeah, that'd be good. All right. Again, thank you to everybody. Someone says Philly was sleepwalking. Hey, don't ruin the vibe. All right. I'm gonna be excited until Sunday. Let me have that. Thank you to
Yeah.
everybody. We do appreciate it. We'll see you on Sunday. And until next time, have a good one.
Peace.